It is my delightful pleasure to be in this room on this evening. I look around and I am already excited. I am excited because in this room, I see a future that looks a whole lot better than what we have going on right now. So let me say this, thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you for deciding that this was something that was worth your time, right? Because the truth of the matter is that you could be absolutely anywhere else, but you're not. You're here because you know what we know, that there's something in the palm of your hand, something in your mind, something in the core of your being that we need to ensure that tomorrow is so much brighter. You see, my ladies, my friends, we somehow messed it up. We had it in the palm of our hands, and nevertheless, we somehow let it slip. We let us wind up in an interesting environment where women do not feel like they are the magical beings that they were ordained to be. So first of all, to my friends, the wonderful individuals, the fantastic women, the wonder women who lead this initiative and this incredible institution, thank you for being on the planet right now. I say all the time, you know, we could have been, no, go ahead, give them a round of applause. Because I'm going to tell you this, and I've said it before, but I often say, you know, the truth of the matter is that we could have been born, we could have hit this planet at any other time in history, right? We could actually have been born 2,000 years ago or 2,000 years from now, and so we would live next to our neighbors, the Jetsons, and their dog. What? That's right. But we did not. We are here exactly right now, and I believe that there's a reason for that. I believe that there is no such thing as coincidence. I believe that there is a providence, that there's a reason, a rationale as to why it is that we are here right now. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, if that's okay. But before we do, so I've heard that you've been having a little too much fun. From what I'm hearing, you have quite the curriculum. You've been spending some time with some of the brightest minds in politics throughout the state of New Jersey. First of all, to be able to have a slumber party with Kathy Donovan, what? Like, how did I miss that invitation? Thank you, my friend. But to be able to literally spend time, yes, in panels, absolutely, and hearing keynotes, fantastic, but also in quiet time with one another, with women who do not look like me, who do not come from where I come from, who bring to every environment that they are in a different aspect of themselves, something new that's always on the horizon. Sasha Peterson, I don't know about you, but there's something that makes me excited about that. To be able to know that, yes, I get to sit down next to them at lunchtime or at dinner, but I can also cozy up after dinner too. That I get to ask them questions about what it is like on their side of the tracks and how it is not that we are different, my sister, but how we are the same. That how you, growing up in your conservative household with your evangelical parents, talking about myself, who have a Republican ideology, sits next to me, and we have so much in common with the very liberal, extremely progressive daughter of hippies. How is that possible? I'm talking about myself and a best friend. But what I can tell you is that it is possible because of the fact that this institution exists. You see, without the very fiber and the essence of a program like this, my sisters, then all of the I wish we could is for naught. So do me a small, minute favor and give it up for the women who put this program together, for the founding leader. And for every administrator, every sister friends who thinks that it's not robbery in order for them to spend some time with you. So how about we dig into it, huh? So Debbie asked me to talk a little bit about myself. And I thought that that was kind of funny, right? Because I was just like, aren't they going to have like programs with bios? And then she introduced Sydney, and so now you know everything you need to know, really. So instead, I'd like to just table that for just a moment, and rather, I'd love to talk a little bit about you. Is that okay? Is it okay if I talk to you about the fact that you, my fantastic, glorious mermaid, unicorn, you, she who makes Puff the Magic Dragon look like he didn't come to play for real. You who are Black girl magic and Wakanda forever, you. Yeah. Marvel fangirl, yeah. I love the fact that people literally were saying to me, Michellene, you know that Wakanda is not a real place, right? I was like, good morning, colonizer. Why did they put that scene in that movie? I said it for a month. My boss was like, okay. But the reason why I want to talk about you is because you, my sister friends, find yourselves hitting this earth at an incredible time in history. You find yourselves literally coming of age in the midst of #MeToo, right? And #Time's Up, right? And #please do something about gun control, and #listen to me, hear my voice, hear me roar because I'm here for real. You find yourselves coming of age at a time when, quite frankly, the age is crying out from the ground about the fact that it needs you. It needs everything about you. It needs for you to bring your brilliance and your beauty too. Don't check that at the door, girl. What? It needs for you to understand exactly that which is in all of you. The fact that the world sometimes will not recognize you because you will show up in a package that they are not ready to understand. One that they have not as of yet learned the value thereof. They do not know what to do with all of that. They cannot figure out why it is that that your lashes and your eyebrows are on fleek and your hair looks fantastic, and yet you open up your mouth and out of it comes data analytics that they have as of yet begun to truly be able to analyze. How is it that you are that which confounds the wise? And yet and still you show up. How is it that you come from that background, you know that background of socioeconomic disadvantage, you know that background. How is it that you come from that neighborhood, that place where people, quite frankly, do not make it up out of? How is it that you come from that place and then you walk into this hall and yet, my God, you're my boss? How can that be? Well, my issue is the fact that, my darlings, that is all because you are needed to be. To be as incredible and outrageous and unexpected as you are. They will not, for some bizarre reason, be willing to stand up and applaud you the way in which we do right now. Oh, and by the way, my sisters, I have certain rules in any environment where I am, okay? Yes or yes? Yes. See, I believe in a win-win world. And so in every environment where we are, I always like to say that women deserve a round of applause. And so there are going to be times when I just ask you to applaud with me, not to applaud me, but to applaud with me. And quite frankly, we will be applauding you and the sheroes who came before you. Is that okay? Yes or yes? Yes. And that is because I never understand why it is that when I open my door in the morning and walk out of my house in order to get into my car, that there are not people lined up, right, applauding me. I cannot figure it out. What? Do you not know who I am? But the truth of the matter is because of the fact that I have the fortunate opportunity to work for an institution which you've just heard about, RWJ Barnabas Health. RWJ Barnabas Health is the largest integrated healthcare system in the state of New Jersey. It is the 12th largest in the country, and I get the delightful pleasure of literally driving social impact and community investment across that system. Well, what in the world does that mean? That means that I get to show up in every room where there is a room, in every meeting where they've decided to meet, and I get to ask a variety of questions like, is everyone in this room around this table with a voice that needs to be here? And if, in fact, they are not, then what do we need to do to make certain that there is equity at this table? And then, my beloveds, what are we doing about our system, our structure, in order to make certain that we are impacting our local community? I was spending some wonderful time with the brilliant Cindy, who is about to take this world by storm. Watch out, y'all. And she was talking to me about, so what does that mean? What do you really do? Essentially, I like to say that I'm a social entrepreneur, a social change agent within a corporate structure that makes certain that this large-scale corporation benefits the local economy where it sits, no matter where that is. So why am I talking about this when I'm talking about you? Well, my darlings, because none of that means anything if, in fact, well, I don't know. There are not certain principles that you apply to you for when you get there. You see, in every room that I enter, I only enter it in order to pry the door open so that you come quickly behind me. You heard Sydney mention I'm both the first woman and the first person of color to ever become an executive vice president in this system. That sounds nice. After all, we are only 151 years old. 151 years old. What in the world took so long? It doesn't matter because I'm there now. And the good news is that I am holding that door open, putting my foot in it, making certain that it does not close until you are ready in order to take your seat too. But I am not alone. You see, there are sisters who came before you who did the same exact thing. You are the hope of that dream. Know that. So what is also keenly important is the fact that, quite frankly, when you get there, the issue is that you deserve to be compensated fairly, right? So when I said that we would talk a little about you, so what was I talking about? I was probably talking a little bit about the racial and the gender wage gap. Probably, just a little. Now, the really great news is the fact that you go to school in the great state of New Jersey. Is everybody here from the great state of New Jersey? Do you live here now? No? I'm so sorry. We offer you our condolences all together now. Aw. I'm certain that it's more than okay. Last time I was here, I brought my niece. She was from LA. She was like, oh, don't feel bad for me. But I simply say that because of the fact that we have a fantastic governor who has recently signed into law an article of legislation that, quite frankly, we have been waiting for a long, long time. And the fact that there are women in other states who have been waiting for it too, well, what does it do? Well, the Diane B. Allen Equal Pay Act does exactly that. It attempts to ensure that we are paid equitably, equally, that, quite frankly, for similar work, that we are actually compensated the same. Well, why does that matter? What does that mean? Well, it means that, quite frankly, that many of us are sick and tired of feeling like we're down and out because we have been working twice as hard to be paid half as much. It means that, and I know that you've heard this because you're spending so much time around such incredible women. I love the fact that they utilize the standard of the average white man, right? That they literally say that that a white woman makes to every dollar that a white man makes, right, 82 cents to that dollar. And to that, an African-American woman makes 64 cents to that dollar, and a Latina woman 43 cents to that dollar, when actually the standard of he who is highest paid is actually an Asian man in tech. I want to make the same as his dollar. But for some reason, they hadn't asked us about that. But I say that to you because I want to make certain that as you walk into the higher realms of where you will wind up being, that you fully understand that you need to negotiate the quality of your presence. Know that. Know that if, in fact, they cannot see your value, then, darling, we have choices. And that you need to let them know that, darling, I have choices. Oftentimes, individuals believe that you are so happy to be there, so happy to be in the room, that you should really, essentially, as someone once said to me, sit there, look pretty, and smile. That was said to me by a woman. I didn't condemn her. I reached across the table and I took her hand and I was just like, oh, girl, I want to talk to your mama. Because my mama and your mama should have had tea a long time ago. She literally said to me, you know why we're here. We're kind of supposed to be here in order just to make the guys feel comfortable. I don't know what you're talking about. And in retrospect, I realized that perhaps that was actually based on her experience in this world, that she's been able to show up at a time and in a space where that was acceptable and okay. That has not been that of which it has been for me and my sisters. And so we are different in that. I say that to you because I want to make certain that we put our differences up front. You see, right now, this world, this country, for some reason, is one of the countries, not the only country, that is incredibly divided. And I want to make certain that you understand that difference and division are two separate things. That we can be different and not be divided. Because I can celebrate your difference. Your blonde hair, your blue eyes. I can celebrate your difference. Your curly locks, your olive skin. I can celebrate your difference, the way you see the world. The same way that you can celebrate mine and all of my great melanin. Listen, because you know you lay out in the sun. But I will tell you this. The world needs you because of the fact that it is inequitable without you. You see, I've already mentioned that I deal in healthcare, right? We've mentioned that a time or two. Well, the area that I really spend the most time on, really, look, I'm having my own personal summer, but because we're all friends here, we're just gonna. But what I do there really is I drive our efforts around addressing the social determinants of health. Anybody heard of those things? You don't count. We used to have the delightful pleasure of working together. Anybody else? So the social determinants of health really are those things outside of your clinical care setting, which deal with everything around where you live, work, play, age, right? Where you learn, where you love. It is whether or not you have enough food to eat for the month, the week, the day. Whether or not if your family misses one paycheck, you know where you will sleep for the month, the week, the night. It is, have we as corporate entities truly assumed our anchor position and embraced workforce development and training? Are we as excited about recruiting the new doctor from UCLA as we are about employing the new single mom who lives down the street? How many of you have seen large academic medical centers in the heart of very urban, very poverty-stricken areas? How can that be with all of that money inside of those walls? Right? And this is what we know, that if we keep doing the same thing that we've been doing, well, you know the rest. You keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. And the reason why we cannot do that is because as we take a look around, what we see is the fact that you'll have, I don't know, and I'm just going to take this city because it is one of my favorite cities. I put that on social media one day, and the people from my hometown reached out and they said, that is not your hometown. But anybody know anything about Newark, New Jersey? Yes. It is on the come up. I love it. I shop there, I visit there. We have one hospital there. You would think that we had many more because I try to be there at least several times a week. There is something electric right now about an urban environment, right? Where there are individuals who are coming together in order to make certain that it is not just economic development that happens downtown, but that we would literally leverage the momentum in order to pull the electricity that is happening in that corridor out to where the residents of those cities live. There's something about that. And of course, that is because a woman is running their economic development corporation. And you know that man. But I mention this because of the fact that the hospital that we've had in that particular city, we've had for 119 years. That there are 2 other hospitals in that same city, and there used to be upwards of 5, actually 7 in the greater Newark area, and yet we have Black infant mortality that is worse than 3 third world countries. So you see, the presence of medical institutions is not truly affecting the outcomes that we hope to see. And yet it took a group of women who had to come together to say, you know, I'm kind of tired of these folks dying in this way. Let's come together and try to make a change. So when I'm talking to you, yes, I know I'm talking to you about things that perhaps you're not thinking about yet, right? Infant mortality, right? No one's going to have a baby anytime soon except the one that I saw working in here just a moment ago, right? Looks like she's about to pop. She looks wonderful, beautiful, in fact, just absolutely magical. Well, here's the thing, my loves. The truth of the matter is that some studies have revealed, some studies have evidenced the fact that even gender in certain circumstances is a social determinant of health. You see, when you are in the midst of an inadequate health system that doesn't adequately give you voice at your own table, well then, quite frankly, you are suffering in a way in which others are not. So what in the world are we talking about? Well, not for everybody, but I'll tell you this. Health system reforms have made access to basic health care for the most vulnerable populations, especially women and children, difficult to afford. Women are particularly affected because of their health needs related to reproductive functions, as well as their cultural, social, and economic vulnerability. So you heard me just talk about something about those urban environments, right? Those urban environments, at least in this state, are often upwards of 60% headed by a single family household, and traditionally they are women. So when we take a look at that and then we take a look at an inequity in pay, we see that there's a comparison here, right? That there might even be as much as a correlation there, right? That there are some issues that we need to pay attention to that are actually outside of whether or not your doctor asks you how long have you had this pain, how bad does it hurt on a scale of 1 to 10, that there are some other things that we need to be taking into account. So I have to say this to you too. that I cannot stand before you on today and talk about health without mentioning mental health, especially after this week. Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, two of my favorites. That hit me in my gut, my sister friends. Whether or not you watched them or bought her purses is irrelevant. The fact that these are two less people on the face of the earth. The fact that suicide right now is at an all-time high in the continental United States. The fact that they used to say that that was between a particular age range, but now we're seeing it outside of the typical age range. That we're seeing it more in white males over 65 than we ever have before. The fact that we're seeing it more in young women between the ages of 18 to 29. So why in the world am I asking you this? Well, I'm bringing this up because I'm giving you just a boatload of issues because I need you to solve them. I need to make certain that we do not leave here without understanding fully that you are called to in some way contribute to a better outcome. And listen, yes, I want you to do oftentimes what I love to do about my portfolio is that it also includes global health. So I run a clinic over in the Dominican Republic. It's fantastic. And in Hurricane Katrina, and strike that Hurricane Maria, we were in Puerto Rico. Not once, not twice, but 4 times. But I also need to make certain that you understand that you need to be looking at what you can do locally. That you don't have to wait in order to make an impact. That the sister, not the one that's right next to you, but the one that's 2 over from you, because everyone's going to start to look at her. What I want you to know is that she may very well be in a position and a point in her life that is uncomfortable for her, that is difficult for her. That I want you to understand that kindness is a superhero weapon. That it helps to push back the forces of evil, and that you should ensure that you are trying to be as kind, as well as intelligent and brilliant as you are every day. That it costs you nothing to smile at another, and that she needs that more than you can possibly imagine. You see, oftentimes, the very best, the very brightest, the wealthiest, the most accomplished, the ones for whom everything is acceptable, they wake up in the morning thinking about everything that is wrong with them. And so we need to make certain that you understand, 1, that you are not alone, my beloved, when that happens. And 2, I promise you that tomorrow is better. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it. But I promise you that if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, I guarantee you that it shall be. I promise you that the sun is going to rise. And I'm saying this because I've been personally affected and personally touched by this issue too. I've had tremendous friends, outrageously accomplished. One was a Georgetown trained lawyer, and another was a referee for the WNBA, who went to church one Saturday night, hugged the minister, went home, opened her Bible, took a bunch of pills, put a noose around her neck, and jumped. I am telling you this because I need to make certain that there's not one sister under the sound of my voice who believes that that is an option. Because the 14-year-old daughter that she left behind and every single friend, well, we have been forever changed. So my gosh, what a somber topic, huh? But I can't play with you. I need to ensure that while I am here with you, that you understand that I fully see you, that I see the brilliance in you, that the beauty that you think is not there because it doesn't look like something on the pages of a magazine, that, darling, I see you. That those who are here, they are wishing for your good, that there's so much positivity that is radiating in your path that there's nothing that you cannot do. That this world, you know, the one outside that leaves you angered at night, that every time when you look on your social media feed and you see yet another video about somebody's brutality, the fact that individuals are calling each other out of their names and being disrespectful in a way in which you have not seen since middle school, my sister, you are called to be here at this space and time for a reason. Because you are the change that we've been waiting for. Now, I could stand here and say, listen, and we need all of you to run for office. We need all of you to run for office. But I'm going to need some of you to also become campaign managers. I'm going to need another or one or two of you to make certain that you are fundraisers, because I need you to get behind one another and to support one another in a way in which, quite frankly, they do not teach us to do. Instead, what they teach us is to look at one another and to criticize. To ask, well, what would she think about this morning? Right? And where they do that at? To make little Cardi B noises when she walks by, like, okay. When what we really need is for you to be strategizing and figuring out how is it that we're going to get her to be the youngest one elected and in that seat. What do we need to do to make certain that the platform or the agenda that bothers us, that we're upset about, that we're not just wringing our hands and shrugging our shoulders and walking away, that we are literally effectuating the change that we kept saying in high school that we wanted to see in the world. I need to make certain that you are supporting one another in the quest to do so. And then I need to make certain that you are doing so for each one of you, both across the aisle and across your differences. You know what is interesting? We often say that, well, I'm going to say this because I am one, but black women tend to show up and save the world. We say that when we take a look at some elections that have happened, right, most recently when, quite frankly, we come out upwards of 82 to 84% and we smash it. We make certain that the individual that we want to get in office gets in office. Let me tell you what hurts our hearts. When then after we have done so, we have to beg for a seat at the table. When the next open seat comes up and they don't come running to us. When they're not looking at how qualified we are, but instead deciding that someone else who doesn't look like us deserves our vote. What the, huh? It breaks our heart. The problem with that is the fact that you deserve a more equitable future in your quest for equality. I want to make certain that you understand that the feminist movement right now is very strong across this country. But I will need you to know that my master's thesis wasn't written about feminism, it was written about womanism. Right? As a matter of fact, it was called Womanism versus Feminism and the Quest for Equality in the American movement. What I can tell you is that womanism is slightly different than feminism. It includes a lot of the same. It means, sister, I want you to do well, but darling, I need you to want me to do well too. And then I'm going to actually need for you to decide that my issues belong on your agenda too. It means that, beloved, issues like police brutality or the killing of unarmed black men, they're actually items that belong on a feminist agenda. You see, when you are watching TV and you see that thing occur on the news and you flick the channel because you don't want the other folks to see that, you don't want to see that on your social media feed, actually, my darling, I have to watch it. Because I need to ensure that it isn't my brother or my husband or my father or my son. And I need for you to be as concerned about my community as I am about yours. That might sound outrageous, but it just sounds like reciprocity to me. It just means that you actually wish me well. I'll never forget going to work the day after Trayvon Martin was murdered and literally having people talk about the game. I'll never forget it because I had been seething in my car, crying, tears rolling down. I'm talking about snot and just not a pretty cry. And I'd gotten myself together in order to go into work because, after all, my staff, my team, this incredible league of leaders, what they deserve is a consistent pause. But as I walked through the halls, all I heard was about everything else other than that murder. Now, I wish I could tell you that that was the only time, but when Tamir Rice happened, I want you to know that I showed up that day like, well, he was a 12-year-old baby. So certainly. But you see, Prime Time had just released a new show and everybody was talking about that instead. I deliberately kept going in and out of the ladies' room that day because I knew that in there, someone would stop me. Someone would say, my God. And when it didn't happen, I realized that, beloveds, perhaps we have not been the sisters that we have been hoping for. Perhaps there's something about my pain that I hid from you to make you think that you didn't have to check on me too. Perhaps there's a reason why we need to make certain that we are doing things differently. So what am I talking about and why am I saying this? Well, I'm saying this because I need to make certain that the women in here understand that, yes, each and every one of you is called to not just run for, but to win office, meaning that when you do not win that very first time, which none of you will have that experience, but when your friends do, you will be able to tell them, that's all right, darling, let's get back out the petition. We're going to go door to door. We're going to make certain that we're raising those funds. We're just going to keep doing it until we get our rightful place. It is your rightful place to be in charge. And it is your rightful place because those who do not look like you, who do not come from where you come from, who have not walked in the path of your ancestors, simply do not understand. They do not get your experience. And your experience is worthy. It is valuable. It deserves to have a voice. Listen, here's a really easy way to think about it, right? Clinical trials for years only included white men, which is the reason why when they started giving the same medication that had already been approved by the FDA to women, and those women started having horrendous side effects, they had a problem, right? So politics and the electoral process is exactly the same thing. Understand that. That what is good for one is not always good for another. And that what we need to do is to make certain that we are our own selves involved in these clinical trials, in the clinical trial of running. We need to make certain that the prescription is right for everybody in every community, every time. Is that fair? Yes or yes? And so let me say this. I talked for a moment about the differences between womanism and feminism, and I don't want to indicate that there are chasms between us, but I do want to make certain that you simply understand just a little bit about what it is that I'm talking about when I say that. Is that okay? So I'm going to read just a tiny bit because I want to make certain that as you leave here that you take with you, that you are armed with more knowledge and education, that literally that when you are unleashed upon the world, then my beloveds, you know which choice to make. And a choice is not a choice if it's not an educated one, right? So feminism, let me start here. Both feminism and womanism are comprised within the framework of the struggle for women's rights. Know that. But you see, feminism was mainly confined to middle and upper class white women and ignored the needs of black women, whereas womanism is focused on the tridimensional oppression faced by women of color. Feminists often consider men not necessarily as allies, perhaps, while womanists show solidarity with black men in their struggle against oppression and against racism. You see, when I walk into a room and I encounter an episode, I oftentimes am unsure, is that because of my race or is that because of my gender or is it because of the both? Is it the intersectionality of this package that they were unprepared for? What is it? I've got lots of funny stories about having been the first treasurer that looked like me, the first black woman to ever be state treasurer. I've got lots of funny stories about that, about how oftentimes we walk into rooms and individuals would think that my white male chief of staff was my boss. How they speak to him and they would say, well, treasurer, we were wondering, and he would let them go on with their request, and then he would turn to me and say, well, let me ask the treasurer, so Michellene, what do you think about their proposal? I understood that when I was the youngest person to be the CEO of the New Jersey Lottery, because it's a $2.4 billion corporation, that once when I entered a room, that a man looked up and gave me his coffee order. That it was because of the fact, well, one, he hadn't been raised right, and two, he simply had not been conditioned to understand that brilliance shows up in a variety of packages, and those packages will not always look like him, but darling, they are worth every single opportunity. So I want to tell you this because I want to make certain, I believe that the women in this room, that this class, this cohort, that you have the ability to change even what those differences are. That when we talk about the fact that traditionally we march out, we bring our numbers out in order to support lots of feminist events and marches and agendas. I know that now the women in this room, those of color and those who are not, will now say, how can we be more inclusive in our agendas? How can we make certain that whatever it is that we're looking for is exactly the same priority for women who do not look like us? Well, the way to do that is simple, right? It is simple because you will ask them to co-chair. You will know that you will not bake the agenda. You will go to them in the very beginning. You will approach them when you're actually at the stage where you're literally saying, we were wondering about this thing. We were hoping to get your insight. We'd love for you to come on board and to join us. We want to incorporate your ideas and your voice and your concerns. We want to make certain that the prioritization of the priorities matches with what concerns you most in life. So that's why I was so excited to be here tonight. I was excited because Debbie, quite frankly, whispered to me that this class is different. That every class is incredible. Every class is exciting, but this class was different. That this class was deliberate and intentional. That there was something about the way in which you process information that just made it different. That a desire to learn and to be inclusive and to achieve a future of equity made it different. So that's why I got excited. Is that all right with you? Girl, you got me fanning myself. Listen, I know that I stand between you and whatever is next on your agenda, and so I do not mean to be before you long. But the reason why I talked about those differences is also because of that which I talked about earlier, okay? Because I want to make certain that you understand that even in the quest for pay equity, babies, we don't even turn out the same, right? So we need to make certain that that quest is inclusive of everyone in a way that is not just one which provides an equal playing field, because some of us have been held back much longer than others, and so we need to get ahead, right? I can tell you this, that women of color's participation in the labor force has always outpaced that of our white sisters. That oftentimes, quite frankly, white women were able to literally get ahead in business and on the workforce at the expense of women of color. You see, we stayed at home and we cleaned the house. And we fed your children, right? We took care of those errands so that you could work. And I say that not in a way which is begrudging, I promise you that. I promise you that. But I say it in a way because I want to make certain that you realize it, that you acknowledge it, that you understand it, and that you seek to change it. That any platform or promise that you make from here on out seeks to be inclusive of that too. That you understand that even in the domestic workforce, where there are Asian women and Latina women and black women and white women, that white women are even paid more for washing the same dishes, for folding the same sheets, for taking care of the same kids. Listen, I don't have to bring this up. I can make certain that everybody just has a really good time and we could all go home, but I need there to be a change. I need it because of the women who came before me and the women that you are. I need to make certain that I speak to you in a transparent manner. Because when the sultry dancer that we mentioned earlier of depression or disappointment or rejection, of suicidal ideation, attempts to raise its ugly head in the lives of your constituents or your families or your girlfriends or even yours, that you know what lies at stake, that you fully understand that the world needs you now more than ever before, that you cannot give up the fight, that you are the reason for the fight, that the only reason why the rest of us came to work every single day was because we knew that you were coming. Listen, we didn't know your name, but we knew you were beautiful and bright. We knew that you were timid in school. We knew that there was something about you. We knew that you knew the answers in math and science, but you wanted Carlos and Timmy to think that you didn't. I knew that. But we needed you to be able to embrace your full voice and bring it to the courtroom and the boardroom and the classroom and the meeting room. And so that is why we showed up. And that is why we need you to too. So how about this? How about you understand exactly who you are and exactly why you're here? I'm not saying that you've got to have it all figured out. I was talking to Sydney and I asked her what kind of law she wants to practice. She said, I don't know. And I said, that's wonderful. Don't put yourself in a box, beloved. The world needs you at the trapezoid. It needs to make certain that you utilize every skill, every talent, Every hidden ability that you don't think that you have right now. You know, the one that you compare to everybody else and think that she's better? That one? That one. We need to make certain that you roll that one out and that you do so unabashedly. Because, beloveds, there is a class that is coming after you, and they need you too.